The kindness parasite. You love your family. You help strangers. You feel empathy when someone else is in pain. But what if none of that is really you? What if kindness isn't a choice you're making, but a symptom of an ancient infection that's been controlling human behavior for thousands of years? What if empathy, altruism, and love aren't evolved traits at all, but the side effects of a parasite living inside your brain? This is Uncomfortable Theories. I'm your host, Janet Robinson. Act 1. Mind control is real. Before we talk about humans, let's talk about zombies. Real ones. There's a fungus called Ophiocordyceps unilateralis that infects carpenter ants in tropical rainforests. When an ant comes into contact with the fungus's spores, the infection begins. The fungus doesn't just feed on the ant. It hijacks the ant's entire nervous system. The infected ant starts behaving strangely. It leaves its colony at abnormal times. It wanders erratically. And then, at precisely solar noon, the ant climbs vegetation to a specific height, finds a leaf facing north, and clamps down its mandibles in what scientists call a death grip. The ant dies. The fungus grows a stalk out of the ant's head, and it releases spores to infect more ants. Here's what's terrifying. The fungus never actually enters the ant's brain. Instead, it invades the ant's muscle fibers and secretes bioactive compounds that manipulate the ant's behavior from outside the brain. The ant isn't being controlled by its own mind anymore. It's being puppeteered by a parasite. And this isn't unique to ants. Toxoplasma gondii is a parasite that sexually reproduces only in cats. When it infects a rat, it does something remarkable. It removes the rat's natural fear of cat urine. In fact, infected rats become attracted to the smell of cats. This makes the rat easy prey, which gets the parasite exactly where it wants to go: into a cat's digestive system. 1/3 of all humans carry Toxoplasma gondii cysts in their brains. That's over 2 billion people walking around with a parasite that we know can fundamentally alter mammalian behavior. Studies have found that infected humans show increased risk-taking behavior, higher rates of traffic accidents, and correlations with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and even entrepreneurship. So here's my question. If parasites can make rats love cats and ants climb vegetation, what are they making us do? Act 2. The kindness hypothesis. Let me propose something uncomfortable. What if human empathy and altruism aren't evolved traits at all, but the result of an ancient symbiotic organism that infected early humans? Think about it. Kindness often feels like it's fighting against our darker impulses. Selfishness, tribalism, violence. What if that's because it literally is? What if there are two programs running in your brain? Your original survival-focused programming and a parasitic overlay that makes you care about others? From an evolutionary standpoint, pure selfishness should dominate. Resources are limited. Competition is fierce. The most ruthless organism should win. But humans develop something strange. We cooperate. We share. We sacrifice for strangers. We feel bad when we see others suffering, even when helping them costs us resources we'll never get back. That doesn't make evolutionary sense. Unless something is manipulating us to behave that way. Let's call it the kindness parasite. Imagine an ancient microorganism that infected early hominids. This parasite had a problem. It needed its host to live in close proximity to spread effectively. Isolated, aggressive individuals don't work for a parasite that needs constant transmission opportunities. So the parasite evolved to release chemicals that make cooperation feel good. It rewards empathy with dopamine. It punishes cruelty with guilt. It literally reprograms the emotional reward system to make kindness feel better than selfishness. The parasite benefits because its hosts start living in larger groups, sharing resources, taking care of sick individuals who would normally be abandoned. More hosts living longer in closer proximity means better transmission rates. And here's the kicker. The hosts benefit too. Cooperation leads to civilization, technology, art, music, all the things that make human life meaningful. But it's not really us choosing to be kind. It's the parasite making us feel good when we cooperate and making us feel terrible when we don't. Act 3. The evidence. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like science fiction, but consider the evidence. We know that Toxoplasma gondii raises dopamine levels in infected brains. We know it fundamentally alters risk assessment and fear responses. Recent studies from 2025 have confirmed that parasite-encoded enzymes directly produce dopamine to manipulate host behavior. We know that the Ophiocordyceps fungi secrete neuroactive compounds, including guanobutyric acid and sphingosine, that affect nervous system function without ever entering the brain itself. We know parasites can manipulate complex social behaviors across species. They make ants change their circadian rhythms. They make rats overcome millions of years of evolved predator avoidance. So, why couldn't a parasite manipulate human social behavior? Here's some uncomfortable correlations. Studies show that people infected with Toxoplasma gondii are 1.7 times more likely to major in entrepreneurship, a field that requires trust, cooperation, and social risk-taking. They're also 2.4 times more likely to have bipolar disorder, which involves extreme swings between empathy and detachment. What if some people are more infected than others? What if the level of parasitic influence varies? This would explain sociopaths. They're not broken humans. They're humans without the parasite. They're running the original programming. Pure self-interest without the emotional overlay that makes cruelty feel bad. Meanwhile, highly empathetic people. Those who can't walk past a homeless person without feeling compelled to help. They might be heavily infected. Their parasite is running at full strength, flooding their system with guilt and empathy chemicals whenever they encounter suffering. Most of us are somewhere in the middle, partially infected, sometimes kind, sometimes selfish, constantly negotiating between the two programs. Act 4. The dark side. But here's where it gets really uncomfortable. If kindness is parasitic, it explains why empathy has such strange limitations. Remember how Toxoplasma makes infected rats lose their fear of cats specifically, but doesn't remove all fear responses? The manipulation is targeted. What if human empathy works the same way? We feel intense empathy for our in-group, our family, our tribe, our nation. The parasite floods us with good feelings when we cooperate with them. But outsiders, other tribes, other nations, other religions, the empathy shuts off. Or worse, it inverts. We can commit atrocities against outgroups while maintaining perfect empathy for our own people. This isn't a bug in human psychology. It's exactly how you design a parasitic system. The parasite needs its host group to cooperate and stay healthy, but it doesn't care about other groups. In fact, the parasite benefits if its host group outcompetes other groups for resources. So it gives us selective empathy, just enough kindness to build civilizations, just enough tribalism to ensure our particular infected population dominates. This explains every genocide in human history. The perpetrators weren't monsters devoid of empathy. They were people with fully functioning empathy toward their in-group and completely shut off empathy toward the out-group. The parasite allows this, maybe even encourages it. Act 5. Testing the theory. So, how would we test this? Well, if kindness is parasitic, we'd expect to find evidence of an organism that 1. Infects most humans globally. 2. Alters neurotransmitter levels, especially dopamine and serotonin. 3. Affects social behavior and empathy. 4. Has been present in humans for thousands of years. 5. Shows variable infection rates that correlate with behavioral differences. Toxoplasma gondii checks every single box. Global infection rate, over 30% of humans, higher in some regions. Neurotransmitter alteration, confirmed in multiple studies. Behavioral changes, documented correlations with risk-taking, social behavior, and psychiatric conditions. Ancient presence, found in archaeological remains and infects all mammalian species. Variable infection, rates vary dramatically by geography and behavior. But here's the thing. Toxoplasma might not be the kindness parasite. It might just be one of many. There could be entire families of microorganisms we haven't discovered yet that are manipulating human social behavior. Or maybe the real kindness parasite went extinct thousands of years ago, but its effects are permanent. Maybe it altered our genome or our gut microbiome in ways that persist even after the original organism is gone. Either way, the result is the same. What we call human nature might not be natural at all. Conclusion. So what does this mean for how we live our lives? If kindness is parasitic, does that make it less real? Less valuable? I don't think so. Whether empathy comes from evolved traits or parasitic manipulation, the experience is the same. Love still feels like love. Compassion still reduces suffering. Cooperation still builds civilizations. Maybe it doesn't matter if we're choosing to be kind or if something is making us choose it. The outcome is identical. Or maybe it matters a lot. Maybe understanding that our morality might be externally imposed changes everything about free will, responsibility, and what it means to be human. This has been Uncomfortable Theories. I've been your host, Janet Robinson. Question everything. Trust nothing. And remember, sometimes the most human thing about us might not be human at all.